dear ones. You're listening to the What God Is Not podcast with Father Michael O'Loughlin and Mother Natalia.
Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in today to What God Is Not. Today, Father Michael is talking about the life of early Christians using some apostolic writings and the paradox that we are called to live in the world but not of the world, and kind of what that looks like, what it looks like to live out a holy and humble confidence. Also, you can, if you're very interested, learn some of the nutrition facts of pumpkin seeds and Father Michael's ignorance of them. And if you are a hashtag banter hater, you're going to want to skip only a mere 5 minutes.
Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to him forever. You were just trying to make me laugh right before we started recording.
I'm trying to make you roll your eye.
Did I roll my eyes?
Can you
I don't think I
take this
did.
away from me, Hannah, so I don't eat those? Thank you.
I was wondering if you were going to munch on some pumpkin seeds during
if I have that near me, I will. So someone told me that pumpkin seeds have the highest protein. I'm not going where you think I'm going with this. Someone told me that pumpkin seeds have the highest protein of any other seed.
That's probably true.
So when you're like me and don't know how to eat vegan, and yet you're trying to be vegan, you just eat a lot of pumpkin seeds. Supposedly a lot of fat too. So I tell Mother Natalia that it has a lot of fat. I tell her that it has a lot of protein, which is like good. And she decides to bring in the negativo and tell me that it also has a lot of fat.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't. Hannah, can you look up how much fat is in pumpkin seeds?
Let's ask
it's a
Mother
good
Ileana.
fat. I just was worried that it's like, you know how you have, no, you don't know. You don't experience this, or you do and you don't realize it. But sometimes when you have food that's too oily, you don't feel really very good after you eat it. And I was worried that if you had the amount of pumpkin seeds that you put into your beer glass, it would just make you not feel very good. That's all.
I don't even know what this means. 5 Gs. That's like a Wi-Fi thing. Oh, 5 grams. Is that a lot?
Pumpkin seeds are low in carbs but high in fat, making them an ideal snack for people who follow low-carb or plant-based diets. They're loaded with a variety of nutrients, including fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Careful, they have a lot of fiber.
So does all that mean that I can eat a lot of them? I don't know. I don't understand.
Eat so many. Eat all the pumpkin seeds that you want to eat, Father Michael. I will gladly provide them.
I'm still a child in many ways, but I'm definitely a child in the way of not knowing what calories are. Like Father Nathan, my assistant, he will say, I'm only eating this many calories today. And I'll nod and smile. Like I have any idea what he's talking about. I don't know if that means it's a good day for you or a bad day for you. Is this going to be a struggle? What's your last name, Hannah? Are we shouting you out?
Sure, Crane.
Hannah Crane. Welcome, Hannah Crane.
Hi, thanks.
Audience of one.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Mother Natalia has told so many stories about you on this podcast without you knowing.
I don't think that's true.
That's definitely not true.
When we met last night, you didn't know who I was.
You're the soap provider.
I am.
You're the one that sent me soap and stickers.
Yes.
But yes, I did only realize that last night. I'm just horrible with names.
Well, and you flew late at night, and
I did. I took a red eye here to Cleveland. Mother and I are sitting side by side. High five.
Could you hear it?
I think so.
Oh, good.
She's also not wearing headphones, so she has no idea what's.
You told me I didn't need my headphones.
You don't need your headphones.
Okay.
I'm just making you regret it. So welcome, Hannah. She's here from beautiful Montana, right? Mm-hmm. And mom of 2, husband, wife of 1, mom of 2.
It's a weird way to say it. Yeah. I'm married.
And what's your favorite color?
Well, I do like green.
All right.
Everybody you know will be in Colorado Springs if they need to make a friend.
Ooh, she's moving to Colorado Springs. If anybody down there needs a friend, you're a Roman Catholic or Byzantine Catholic?
Roman Catholic in practice, but Byzantine in my heart.
Oh, yes. There we go. Yeah, well, welcome to the state of Colorado.
This is not Colorado.
Both. Right, I know. But
you mean ahead of time when she moves?
When you move there, yes. Just welcome to the state that both Mother and I hail from at some point in our life.
Yeah.
And now we're both living other places. Her Ohio, me Ojai, California. It's a no high joke.
Do you want me to laugh at that?
Sorry. Neither of you laughed. Thank you. Okay. Now, we're going to laugh at her making fun of me, but not at a joke. Okay. Ojai is a city near where I live in Los Angeles. All right. On to the topic. So I am always looking for some ways, because I one of the beauties of podcasting to me is is something that I read and got a lot out of, and then I read it with you, and then we talk about things that I read and got a lot out of. So I found this letter, the Epistle to Diognetus. He is an apostolic father. Most people do not know he exists. It is actually the letter to him, so the author is unknown. But from my extensive research, this letter is one of the earliest, or if not the earliest, document that has to do with apologetics. So shout out to Cowboy. Cowboy is a big fan of apologetics, namely defending and explaining the faith. The author is unknown, so certain people have wondered. But it is written to Diognetus. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. But Diognetus, I forget right now, and I'm not getting enough Wi-Fi because I put my phone in airplane mode. What that name means? The Diognetus actually means something. I'm going to look it up while I talk here. Thank you, Hannah. Can you be our research assistant for this podcast, please?
Absolutely love that. How do you spell that?
Diognetus. It means something of God. Hand of God, breath of God,
You're
something.
going to have to go a lot more slowly than that.
Diognetus. It means God is Nito. Anyway, I read it. I actually heard about him. I keep on saying him. He did not write it. He's the recipient. It means God born.
Yes.
Thank you. So born of God. So
That makes sense.
natal.
Yeah.
Like natal. I get it. Yep. Like doula. No.
We're back to
We were
doula.
talking about doulas earlier. By the way, shout out to Andrew Whaley. Doula is a good starting word for Wordle.
You should have let me give him the shout out, because I love Andrew Whaley.
See, she felt guilted by Andrew Whaley into saying the name Andrew Whaley on this podcast.
Yeah, we gave a talk last night, and I should have said his name, and I didn't, and I'm really sorry.
Don't let him manipulate you, Mother.
He
Don't let
would
him make
not.
you feel bad.
He would not.
I love trying to get in between the two of them.
I can confirm the remorse. She did feel very sad. Truly. For the whole car ride home, and then that was that.
Yeah, I moved on pretty quick.
Welcome to the phlegmatic world of Father Michael O'Loughlin.
It's kind of nice.
I move on for everything pretty quick, positive and negative.
Maybe
All right.
I'll try to do this.
Diognetus means God born. So whether this was actually a dude.
Hannah's like our anti-squirrel. She brings us back from the squirrels.
With 2 young kids, you get a lot of practice.
What do we, if Perla and Cowboy are squirrels, what is the animal that would bring us back from a squirrel that we can name Hannah?
Hawk.
I am the
hawk that eats the squirrels.
Hannah the
swoops
hawk.
down.
Hannah the hawk.
Okay.
This is perfect.
I'll accept it.
All right.
Swoops down. It consumes our squirrels, tearing them apart.
I don't know if I accept it anymore.
Diognetus.
So Diognetus means God born. Whether that's a real person or just he's writing kind of like Philothea for St. Francis de Sales. Who did he write Philothea? I think it was. Beloved of God? Okay. Anyway.
I don't know.
We're Roman Catholic fact checkers. Okay, here we go. Hannah's going to jump on it.
Okay, but keep going.
So I like something that, I heard about this on a podcast, and I was intrigued by these early witnesses of the faith, because that's what oftentimes, we were talking about evangelization last night, and for those of you that want to check it out, if you go to just God With Us Online, Google that. I think easternchristian.org or easterncatholic.org. Just look up God With Us Online, and then you can find our past classes, past sessions, and you'll find one about hospitality with me and Mother Natalia. Anyway, so fascinated by what softens people's hearts to truth and beauty and goodness, what leads people to the true faith and to engagement with the mysteries of the church and the life of the church, the kingdom of God, etc. So this is a 2nd century, probably written around the year 130 AD. The author says that he is a follower or a disciple of the apostles. So he may have even known John the Beloved, John the Evangelist. And many people say it comes from that school, like the language, etc. This was discovered, it was lost, it was discovered, I believe, in the 13th century and published in the 15th or 16th century after the printing press. And anyway, there's a lot of chapters. It begins, I printed out here from Mother and I, chapters 5 and 6, excuse me. It starts out by the author condemns, I think he's speaking to a pagan. He condemns the Greek pagans who have multiple gods. He also condemns certain ways of the Jews. So he's speaking to the other well-known religions and explaining and defending the Christian faith over and against the other religious views of the time. So I think what I'm going to do here, Mother, I asked you to print out one as well. But if you're up for it, I think I'll just read chapter 5 and then read chapter 6. I know they're long-ish. They're not really long, but they're one paragraph each. I tried splitting it up further, but you really have to kind of get the whole paragraph, a whole chapter at a time. So I don't want to split it up because there'll be false splits where if I just read the whole thing. So does that sound good?
That sounds great.
And then I would love your feedback on lines. That's why I asked you to have a pen, just like underline things that inspire you. But again, this is one of the Apostolic Fathers. I don't think we read enough Apostolic Fathers, and this is kind of a good one because the whole thing is short. These chapters are only one. I think it's only like 15 chapters or something like that, and they're all only one paragraph long.
I'll give one recommendation. So I've read this before, I think.
Oh, snap.
I think that it was in the context of last year, or maybe 2 years ago, for the Great Fast. I read, 2 years ago, I read a collection of writings by the church fathers, and it was something, and so they have a different, they had a different epistle or for each day for 40 days, or it was at least, like sometimes if they were really long, then it was multiple, but there was Polycarp and Ignatius and Justin Martyr and things like that. So people like that, they're not things. So I don't remember what it's, but if you just Google 40 days church fathers, then you'll be able to find it. It's just a PDF online. So I would really recommend reading that to get some samples of different apostolic writings.
Cool. So again, the context, early 2nd century, a Christian writing likely to a pagan, I believe, and explaining and defending the Christian faith over and against the other faiths.
A Christian writing to a pagan?
I believe so, yes.
Diognetus?
Diognetus is a pagan.
Oh,
And it's a Christian defending the Christian faith to Diognetus.
Yes, okay, keep going.
All right, so chapter 5. For the Christians are distinguished from other men, neither by country, nor language, nor the customs which they observe. For they neither inhabit cities of their own, nor employ a particular form of speech, nor lead a life which is marked out by any singularity. The course of conduct which they follow has not been devised by any speculation or deliberation of inquisitive men. Nor do they, like some, proclaim themselves the advocates of any merely human doctrines, but inhabiting Greek as well as barbarian cities, according to the lot of each of them has determined, and following the customs of the natives in respect of clothing, food, and the rest of their ordinary conduct, they display to us their wonderful and confessedly striking method of life. They dwell in their own countries, but simply as sojourners. As citizens, they are in all things with others, and yet endure all the things as if foreigners. Every foreign land is to them as their native country, and every land of their birth as a land of strangers. They marry as do others. They beget children, but they do not destroy their offspring. They have a common table, but not a common bed. They are in the flesh, but they do not live after the flesh. They pass their days on earth, but they are citizens of heaven. They obey the prescribed laws, and at the same time surpass the laws by their lives. They love all men and are persecuted by all. They are unknown and condemned. They are put to death and restored to life. They are poor, yet make many rich. They are in lack of all things, and yet abound in all. They are dishonored, and yet in their dishonor are glorified. They are evil spoken of, and yet are justified. They are reviled and bless. They are insulted and repay the insult with honor. They do good, yet are punished as evildoers. When punished, they rejoice as if quickened into life. They are assailed by the Jews as foreigners and are persecuted by the Greeks. Yet those who hate them are unable to assign any reason for their hatred. What struck you?
Me first? This is your topic. Okay.
I everything. I could go sentence by sentence. But I saw you underline something, so what did you underline?
Yeah, so the where he says that they display to us their wonderful and confessedly striking method of life. I was struck by that because, he's describing of how from the outside they look just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And that it's their method of life that displays to us that they're living something different. And, we say in our Typicon, our rule of life at the monastery, it says that the habit is not only the clothes that we're wearing. It's not just the dress and the veil, that the habit is also part of that is our smile and our countenance. And so I think that there's this matter of just our very being should kind of exude our Christianity if we actually are living a Christian life. I'm thinking of a story that one of the nuns likes to tell. I want to say this was Canta La Mesa, the papal preacher, Father Canta La Mesa. I think it's his story that he was riding on a bus or a train or something like that, and he wasn't wearing his clerics. So on the outside, he didn't look like a priest. And he was praying while on the bus, not visibly, like he didn't have his hands folded or anything like that. He just was sitting there praying. And a woman came up to him at the end of the bus ride and says, "Are you a priest?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I think he asked her how she knew, and she just said something like, I see Jesus in your face. And there was just, there's something about our very way of life should display our Christianity even more so than an exterior. And then the way that he's describing this, what this method of life looks like, just paradox after paradox of they pass their days on earth, but they're citizens of heaven. They obey the prescribed laws, and at the same time, they surpass the laws by their lives. And that's so there's that paradox that makes us question what's different about them. But there's also this aspect of being so countercultural. Like they're insulted and repay insult with honor. When is that ever done in the world? When do we see that in social media or in presidential elections or anything like that? They're dishonored, and in their very dishonor, they're glorified. They just, there's something that we see this way of life and we say there's something different there, and there's something that doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, it offers the opportunity to ask why it doesn't make sense and what's the motivation there.
Yeah, there's definitely something about the fact that I've mentioned this before in the context of consecrated virgins, but they're kind of sleeper cells. They catch people off guard because in many ways, Christians are good citizens. We're good workers, ideally. We're good citizens, we're good workers. We take care of people like the old, establishment of Catholic schools and Catholic hospitals. And, we take care of people and educate youth, whether they're Catholic or not. There's very much a concern for the humanity because, like I was saying last night in our talk, there's a within especially our Eastern Christian understanding, the heaven and earth are kind of the same place. There's we are called to Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There's very much a God's will extends to everybody, and God's presence is everywhere, as we say in the Heavenly King. Comforter, Spirit of truth, everywhere present and filling all things. And we are called as Christians to be concerned with people's physical welfare as well as our spiritual. Spiritual, of course, trumps the physical. I was struck. I preached this past Sunday on. We of course had the gospel. We're recording here on Tuesday of the fifth week of the Great Fast. And so we had last Sunday the story where Jesus comes down the Mount of Transfiguration with Peter and John and James and encounters the father who had the demoniac son. And there's this very odd line to me where Jesus first gets frustrated and he says to the apostles, how much longer must I endure you? How much longer must I remain with you? You are faithless, So he questions their faith. And then when the father comes and says, I know you can cure my son, do you will it? Or can you do it? She says, I should look at the Greek to see, but can you do it? And Jesus says, can you? Will you? In other words, anything is possible for the man who has faith. And the man immediately responds, I believe, help my lack of belief. This paradox, this humble acknowledgement of the mustard seed of faith, and yet not the ability not to carry it out, whatever the various ways are interpreting that. But then it says Jesus looks up and saw a crowd gathering. And then he said to the demon, come out of the boy. And it's just very weird, are you doing it for show? Why know that there's a crowd gathering? But I think one of the interpretations of this is that Jesus honestly wasn't that concerned about casting out the demon, right? He was there to build faith. That was his job. He was there to give faith to his apostles and acknowledge the faith of this man. Casting out the demon was completely secondary. Right, as I said before, I've talked to many exorcists, and this is common knowledge among the world of exorcists. You can be in a state of grace and be possessed. Right? There's a saint. Let me look it up. One of my parishioners. Shout out to Lorena Toll. She and Hannah. Maybe you can look up this saint when I find her. But she is. Okay, she's even sent me the link. This is thelittlearab.org. I have no idea if this is a canonized saint or not, but Saint Mary of Jesus Crucified lived in the 19th century. Saint Mary of Jesus Crucified, and I have not read the story, but Lorena told me that there was a time when she was a nun and she was in her cell, and the devil grabbed hold of her and was like, one of the other nuns walked in and literally she was being flung across the room, like by the devil, and the nun who walked into the room just looked at her face and said she was just lost in prayer, and this joyful look on her face. The devil was trying to scare her. The devil was trying to frighten her, get her to lose her faith, but she was just deep in prayer. So the devil only has control over our physical being, even in possession, right? You can be possessed and still be in a state of grace. One mortal sin, as I've said before, one mortal sin is infinitely more damaging than possession. So Jesus' concern is not for the possession. The boy could be just fine. Again, the boy wasn't. He almost dies every day. The devil throws him into fire and into water. Obviously, it scared the dad. But Jesus' concern in this sense, just like he says to the paralytic, what's more important? And what's easier to say? Your sins are forgiven, or stand up and walk. Jesus is concerned with forgiveness of sins. In this case, he's concerned with giving of faith. That's one of the reasons why some would say we hear this gospel during the Great Fast, is because it's all these gospels are for the catechumens, right? So the catechumens are moving towards having faith and receiving faith in their baptism. But this is a moment of Jesus preaching and putting faith before physical well-being. That's more important to us and more important to him.
This is the man born blind. When his apostles, when the disciples say, "Well, who sinned? Was it this man or his right. parents?" And Jesus says, "That's not the point. Right. This, he's blind basically, so that I can heal him for the sake of the glory of the kingdom." And it's the purpose of John's gospel. At the end of the Gospel of John, it says, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. He does these things so that we may believe, so that the crowd may believe, so that, And
I think that with that in mind, it's not contradictory to that to say we need to care for the physical well-being of others, and it's a Christian duty, and that Christians again in this are in some ways in the world, as Jesus says, in the world but not of the world. I send them out like sheep among wolves in John 17. So that there is in what ways are we good citizens and good workers and building up the culture? In what ways are we making sure that we are political beings? We understand politics, and yet the politics are rightly ordered towards movement. Making sure that, as we try to with Fotina, that even loneliness can debilitate and make someone who's not able to have faith. We need community before we can have a real authentic faith. We need to understand that well. So that there's I love the fact that his reflection upon Christians is they do not hide out. They don't have their own cities. They don't have their own clothing style. They don't have all these things that make them stand out from the rest in many ways. But what makes them stand out is something that's hidden. Is that in this paragraph or the next one? That talks about.
I think it's the next one.
Okay, but there's something that's hidden, and yet they in some ways they act just like everybody else. And then at the second part of that paragraph, they are poor. They lack all things. They are dishonored. They are evil spoken of. They are reviled. They are insulted. They do good and yet are punished for it. When they're punished, they rejoice as if quickened to life. Something comes out of them when they're punished that quickens their life and enlivens them. They are assailed and are persecuted. Yet those who hate them, they are hated by many, are unable to assign any reason for their hatred. This is actually very much like Chesterton as well. G.K. Chesterton in his book Orthodoxy talks all about how when he was kind of discerning faith, when he was deciding which faith to follow, he found that Catholics were loved by everybody, but for different reasons. Everybody had different reasons, and were hated by everybody, but for different reasons. It's like, why do you hate Catholics? Well, because why do you hate Catholics? Because and it was like some even ideology that is so loved and hated for such diverse number of reasons. There's something unique about that, and something that I need to look into. So I'm questioning. There's something intriguing, about that. So yeah, the ways that we discern in wisdom, the ways that we are like others, like some and not others, and yet this even happens within the body of Christ. You, mother, as a nun, always wear your habit. Your vocation is to stand out, is to wear something different. That is your place to manifest that homily that is, sometimes God calls us to separate from this world, to live a life of intense and unique pursuit of holiness. And that someone like I mentioned, a consecrated virgin, I now have 3 friends in Colorado who are all consecrated virgins. They are called to dress and act like everybody else, to have a job like everybody else, to appear to almost everybody, to have a normal life, except they are virgins, and they will remain virgins for the rest of their life. In other words, that aspect of their life, namely the expression of their sexuality, is given completely to God, and yet everything else about their life remains the same. And as any lay person, they're asked to serve the diocese where they're in, and to some extent, but that's not their primary vocation. Their primary vocation is to work in the world and to have that witness, whether and how much it's shared is kind of up to them and by the guidance of their spiritual director. But there's a priest, who depending on the tradition, sometimes goes out in clerics, sometimes goes out not in clerics. There's a certain discernment there. In my life, sometimes I go out wearing clerics, Roman collar, because that's what people recognize, but sometimes I go out wearing a cassock. It's like there's different things, different ways of dressing. So, but we all discern those various ways of again, this is an apologetic letter. He's explaining and defending the ways of Christians, describing the way they live. And there's just anybody who reads this would go, man, there's so much subtlety and nuance there. Can't it just be black and white? Can't it just be, yeah, you live this way, you do these things, you don't question anything, and you're pleasing to God. Christians are much more, live much more in the gray in that way, and this is from the very, very beginning. And I think that's intimidating, because we need to pray for wisdom to live that out well. And yet it certainly has a beauty to it.
Can I comment on one other line before
Absolutely,
you do chapter 6? I really love the line that says, they dwell in their own countries, but simply as sojourners. Because I'm just remembering, I've maybe shared this before, but several years ago, I was on retreat and I was kind of just throwing a temper tantrum with the Lord, as I do, and about the fact that he brought me to Ohio from Colorado. I love Colorado and I miss Colorado deeply, and not only the people, although that's a big part of it, but I have a lot of friends here in Ohio and I love them very deeply. It's not just about the people. God gives me beautiful people everywhere I go, because there's just beautiful people everywhere, because image of God and so on and so forth. So anyways, but Colorado, I really love the place. I love the mountains. I love all of the little coffee shops. I love and the microbreweries. And it's just like, I just love it. And I was pretty angry for a while. Like, I was sure Jesus was telling me to come here. I was sure he was asking me to stay here. But I felt like there was some aspect of punishment of taking me away from Colorado, because it's a good and beautiful gift. And so why would he take that away? And then it just struck me, it's like I felt God speaking to my heart and saying, have you considered that I brought you away from Colorado so that you didn't fool yourself into thinking anywhere here on earth is your home? And it just was this moment of realization of like, yeah, I'm very attached to Colorado. And if I, it's just a good reminder that we can become too comfortable where we are, especially if it's something that we, on a human level, enjoy very much. And so it's this gift of knowing that we should always be yearning for something greater, always aching for something greater, always be a little bit discontent with where we are here.
Did I talk on the podcast about the sleeping bag thing and the toiletries bag? Or was that in a different context? I don't
remember.
Okay. I don't either, but I know I must have shared it with you at some point because you knew what I was talking about. This was actually...
You mean because I gave you a sleeping bag?
No, exactly. This was the beginning. This epistle was the beginning of that inspiration for me. So when I heard this mentioned on another podcast...
this epistle?
Yes, this epistle. It was his name David Hyatt?
Did you just steal a topic from another podcast?
I did. Well, it's an adult...
Michael.
It's an adult ed... It's an adult ed. It's an ancient faith radio thing. Is it David Hyatt? This is horrible.
Okay, as long as it's adult ed, it's fine to steal.
The Apostolic Fathers, Letter to Diognetus, at the intersection of East and West, which is an ancient faith podcast. Deacon Michael Hyatt, excuse me.
Okay, everyone make sure you go listen to that podcast
It's probably better than this. But it's all it is this deacon's adult ed classes. And he's going through all the Apostolic Fathers. And this is one I listened to. So anyway, that was the beginning of my inspiration. But what I'm getting at here is that this is how much of a cop-out this is. But and Andrew Whaley is going to get so mad at me for saying this, but when Andrew Whaley is building a coffee shop at our church. So to help save the church some money, he's very graciously, instead of us paying for him to have housing, he's just sleeping in the guest room in my house, which I have a guest room. And yet it's not his guest room. So he has to move out if any other guests come. So God bless him for this. So he just moved out when he went home to visit his father, and a deacon stayed in the room where he was. So he moves in and out all the time. So very much for him, it's not home. Mm-hmm. But when he came, I must have had a brain fart, which is very common for me, but I just kind of forgot that there were blankets, like comforters and stuff in the room in the guest room, like ready for a guest. And so I gave him my one comforter off my bed. And so when he came in the summer, that was fine. I was just sleeping with a sheet and it was fine. But then when winter came, I was getting very cold and not sleeping very well. So instead of just being a human and going to the store and buying another comforter, I just got my sleeping bag out and I started sleeping in my sleeping bag on my bed, right? Very bachelor. And And then I would get lazy when I got home from trips. I was traveling a lot, and I would just keep all my toiletries in my toiletry bag. So every morning I'd take them out of the bag, acting like I was in a hotel room, sleeping in the sleeping bag, taking the toiletries out of the bag, and then I would just keep them in my toiletries bag. And then I thought, and then all my friends made fun of me, and the Schneers even bought me a comforter for Christmas. So
at what point did you find out that there were comforters in the guest room?
Only after I preached on this. And Whaley's like, dude, there's like 7 blankets in the guest room. I also may have told the priestess homily in front of some pretty single girls. And that just embarrassed our Andrew Whaley immensely, because he thought that I was saying like Andrew Whaley took my blankets away.
Father
that was
Michael,
absolutely nothing. I know. I don't know these things. Anyway, I embarrassed him in front of pretty girls. So sorry, Andrew. My apologies. So I thought, well, as much as I deserve to be made fun of for these very bachelor type things I'm doing, I think it would be cool. The observant Jews do this for the Feast of Tabernacles. They will literally build a tabernacle, a tent, a hut on top of their house, and they will sleep in it for the period of the feast. And what this is an imitation of the time when the Jews were in the 40 years in the desert. They traveled through the desert, and so they sleep in their whole family, and they have guests, and they feed them and everything else. And it's very much like we are a people that are on the move, like the Exodus. And so I thought, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing to adopt, where during the fasts, I always sleep in a sleeping bag, and I always have my toiletries out of a bag, as if I'm traveling, as if I'm not home. Now, again, for me, it's easy because I kind of doing this anyway. That's not a big struggle for me. But I thought, what a beautiful thing. I think some people, when I preach this to my congregation, I think some people are doing that. They're sleeping in a sleeping bag during the fast, and they're only taking the toiletries out of their bag. It's a sacramental, physical sign of that I am not a citizen here, like you're moving from Colorado, and embracing it as such. And I think that there is something that we are citizens of heaven, and we are sojourners here. And so there's a certain discontent, even in our homes. Our homes are not home. And just like our cities are not our own home, our homes are not our home. And this is, we feel this very much if the school we went to had a school shooting, if the house next to us or our house got robbed, there's a certain violation. Like this is our home, this is our bubble. This cannot happen here. But the devil's real. It can happen here in my town.
The devil's a jerk.
The devil's a jerk. In my home, right? All these things can happen. So in other words, this is not home. I'm never going to be completely safe. No matter how many walls I put up in my house in Hollywood, there's always going to be a certain, and I think that's the negative side of what he's saying here, is that Christians are not citizens; they're sojourners here, and they acknowledge that, and yet they thrive here, right? That we are happy. We know that God calls us to be joyful and happy here, and so in many ways we partake of the goods of the world within moderation, and as they're offered to us by God as gifts. But there's always going to be a deep discontent that's healthy for us.
Great.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
I'm reading your mind here.
What?
I felt that was a very loaded pause. Can I share my feelings for a second?
What are you talking about?
I felt that you're not speaking when that pause that we just had was get on with it, Father Michael.
Am I
just being a drama queen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, ladies.
No,
all right, chapter 6.
No, I'm really tired. I'm struggling to focus in life.
Okay.
This morning, so tonight we have our live recording for the 100th episode. And I almost told Rose this morning, who's here on observership, I almost reminded her to bring her Riasa and Scufia to the church tonight for Vespers. She's not even a member of the monastery. She's just here for a few weeks, and you get your Riasa after you've been here for at least a year or two. And I was just totally brain farting.
I've ordained many priests to the episcopate. Like I've called many priests bishops instead of father. I don't know why that's a weird subconscious thing. I
do this with Father Milan in Vegas because Bishop Milan. So I often accidentally call him
You have
Bishop
a good
Milan.
reason for that. I'm just saying, somehow in my mind, I'm putting certain priests, giving them authority over my life that they don't have. And I've done that with other, calling just certain guys priests, like Father. Oh, he's not a priest. What am I doing? Anyway, there's something subconscious there. Okay, chapter 6.
Okay.
Of the epistle to Diognetus. To sum up all in one word, what the soul is in the body, that are Christians in the world. The soul is dispersed through all the members of the body, and Christians are scattered throughout the cities of the whole world. The soul dwells in the body, yet is not of the body, and Christians dwell in the world, yet are not of the world. The invisible soul is guarded by the visible body, and Christians are known indeed to be in the world, but their godliness remains invisible. The flesh hates the soul and wars against it, though itself suffering no injury, because it is prevented from enjoying pleasures. The world also hates the Christians, though in no wise injured, because they are abjure pleasures. The soul loves the flesh that hates it, and loves also the members. Christians likewise love those who hate them. The soul is imprisoned in the body, yet preserves that very body, and Christians are confined in the world as in a prison, and yet they are the preservers of the world. The immortal soul dwells in a mortal tabernacle, and Christians dwell as sojourners in corruptible bodies, looking for an incorruptible dwelling in the heavens. The soul, when but ill provided with food and drink, becomes better. In like manner, the Christians, though subjected day by day to punishment, increase the more in number. God has assigned them this illustrious position, which it were unlawful for them to forsake.
You need to start this one.
Okay. We need to be careful of heresy here, by the way. We need to properly
Soul
understand.
and body, and
right,
don't be Arians and
right. And we're not Gnostics. We're not dualists. We don't believe that there's a competition between soul and body. But going back to Paul, we do need to understand that the soul and the intellect, the mind, does need to have control over the body. One needs to be, and then the two are together, but obviously can be separated as they are in death. And we will have our body back, of course, in the resurrection after the second coming of Christ.
Well, and it's important to note that whoever wrote this epistle, he's very clearly making an analogy here. And analogies are not meant to be taken literally, and they fail in some ways. That's why we talk about what God is not instead of what he is, because the analogies fail when we try to say what he is. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So this image of the Christian being in the world, I think as kind of a microcosm, and the world and the Christians being a macrocosm of the body and the soul, is really beautiful. And it does show us our worth as Christians. I've also been preaching this past weekend on what confidence looks like in evangelization and in going to the world. If we understand ourselves to be earthen vessels that are tabernacles of the Holy Spirit, temples of the Holy Spirit, just imagine, like, if we understood how much of a gift we carry with us to the world, even those who are completely antagonistic. If we were door-to-door missionaries, we knock on the door and someone either, pretends not to be home or slams the door in our face or cusses us out, whatever, like, we need to understand, as shout out to Father Jack Custer. He used to, when I asked him one time, I've probably shared this before, but I asked him one time, I said, well, you, Father Jack, were a great inspiration to be in seminary. Like, I wanted to be a priest like you in many ways. There were these qualities about you that inspired me, wanted me to be a good priest. And I said, who are your inspirations? And he said, and he thought about it for a moment. He said, honestly, I can't think of like any priests that were my inspirations. He said the people were my inspirations, like the people that I wanted to serve. And he says, I actually felt like I was carrying around this great gift of myself. And I was just waiting for Christ to tell me where to give it, where to empty it, where to give this gift of self. And
that's
then,
holy confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And it was in the priesthood that I found that gift would bear the most fruit and would be the most beautiful. And I think that's exactly it. If we understood the gift that we carry in great humility, and even in saying our weakness and our sin is going to get in the way of our ministry. But if we see ourselves in the world as the soul is in the body, and the soul is in a sense where heaven meets earth, it's where God impacts us mostly. Then we understand that in the world, even if the world does not acknowledge that light, the light of Christ that we carry about as earthen vessels, we should be more confident and humble in our going out into the world to try to share the good news with those who don't have it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can articulate this. Man, I am so sleep deprived. And this was a bad idea. Maybe you can put words to what I'm going to try to say here, but there's this great freedom of living this Christian life as it's described here, of like loving those who hate us and being confined in the world and yet preserving the world. There's this great freedom of not needing the affirmations and the consolations that those living of the world are striving for. It's like I can be content. I can feel fulfilled even when I'm being hated. And there's a great freedom in that of my seeking out affirmation or my seeking out consolation is not going to be the driving force behind the things that I choose to do and say. And just the confidence that my reward is in heaven. And sometimes we get those, but it's like, so the consolations might come and the affirmations might come, but we don't need to be dependent upon them. And that's where the freedom comes from. It's, I was just reading, I've talked about this a lot recently, but I'm rereading Pustinia by Catherine Doherty. And I was reading it on the elliptical this morning, and she's talking about this concept that all of the saints talk about, that when someone gives us some sort of positive affirmation, they're telling us how good and holy we are, we shouldn't make faces in protest. But then also when someone is rebuking us and shaming us and insulting us, we shouldn't make faces then either. Like it's the point of just being at peace and having this stable joy and this stable contentment regardless of the exterior that we're experiencing, and just receiving all. And I know I said earlier that we should have some level of discontent, but what I mean by that is some level of discontent with the world, right? Yeah. And so having this stable contentment of knowing that God is with us, as we sing over and over during the Great Fast, God is with us. Yeah.
There's something I'm realizing that I've always wanted to be eloquent about. I can't, and I won't be here either, but I think it's just certain personalities, including mine, but I'm always looking for companionship in my leadership. And so when I lead, I want to have advisors and companionship and community so that we can lead together. Because as an extrovert, I process externally. So I like having, okay, if I'm going to process this with leaders, with other people that I've kind of called to leadership with me, especially me as a pastor. But I am realizing every time I try to do this that, again, these are cliches, but the buck stops here. Like at some point, I have to take ownership of my leadership and my decisions and what I'm doing, because nobody else is going to stand by me in those, and that sounds so negative. Like that sounds so negative. Like no one's going to do that. And the end of the day, even the people who I think may support me the most, they can still, again, this sounds so negative. I don't mean to be that way, but they can still say it was my decision. Like it was Father Michael's decision, and the buck always stops.
This is why I never want to be Hegumena.
I know. And people, you have to understand. Like those who follow you, those who you're trying to lead, will always gossip about you. They'll always misunderstand you. Like that is going to happen. And the person you think maybe is the most faithful to you, the day's gonna come where they're going to not treat you like they would treat themselves, or not treat you like they wanted to be treated themselves. And that's just a reality. So it's very, very lonely at the top, in other words. And this is in any leadership. So I don't think it should be that way. And the reason I'm saying this is because this inspires me as a man under authority myself to the bishop and to God. Like that when I realize that the buck stops here, and that there, I have to just acknowledge people are going to gossip about me, even the people that are the closest to me and like respect me the most. It doesn't mean they don't respect me. It just means they're human and they're going to gossip. But that also means that I can take that example and say, let me make sure I don't do that to my bishop. Let me make sure I'm actually empowering my bishop. And even though I may have conversations with other priests, say, for example, about things I disagree with about the bishop, is that conversation going to bear fruit? And how is it going to bear fruit? And is it going to bear fruit eventually making it to him? Is that conversation going to come out? And I think that's what it's saying here, is that Christians are not of the world, and yet they, what is the word here? They preserve it. The world that hates them, they preserve that world. They want to build up the world and empower the world, and yet they kind of refuse to be victims. They refuse to be victims of the world that hates them and still say, I love you and I love the people in the world enough to try to build it up and to make it a better place, even though I don't get the affirmations, I don't get the rewards that secular people who have separated religion and the world, or the faith in the world, or spiritual and physical, that doesn't make any sense. Like the world, if the world hates you, then it's your enemy. Why would you build that up, right? But the world it was created good. All the humans in it were created good. We want to preserve that. So there's something so honorable about a people who will, even under great persecution, love your enemy. Do good to those who hate you. This is everything in here is in the scriptures, of course. It's very much a description of, and it even sounds like St. Paul in many places about the apostles. But it's an inspiration to me to hear this, to say, am I in the world but not of the world? Do I love the creation that God made? Do I, like in Genesis 2:15, I think, do I want to tend and care for this world and the people in it? Do I want to even immerse myself in a culture? That's kind of what he's saying, that the Christians are all over the world. They've immersed themselves in all these cultures. In many ways, they don't look any different. But deep down, they are, again, they're earthen vessels where the light of Christ shines, and they know they are bound for something greater, and they will not settle to be completely content in this world.
In many ways, this makes me think of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, who, as you know, Father Michael is one of my favorite saints. Blessed. Anyways, because he's kind of the modern day saint of the ordinary. He didn't do extraordinary things in his life, other than living extraordinarily the Christian life. He wasn't a religious, well, he was a third order, but he wasn't like a religious or a priest. But he served the poor to the extremes. He ended up contracting polio, probably from his service to the poor, and that's what he died of at 24 years old. But he loved mountain climbing. And he loved going to the beach, and he loved these things. But he also would make bets with his friends when he played pool. And if they lost the bet, they had to go pray in adoration with him or go to mass with him or something like that, And he just he looked like everyone else, but there was something different about his life. Like, he was very much living as a sojourner. On his deathbed, he's leaving notes of what still needs to be done to take care of this and that poor person. And but he did so in such a way that his family was shocked at his funeral by the masses of people who came, because it was all of the poor that he had served that they didn't even know he was serving, because he did so in such a hidden way, and in a way that was just like, he didn't think he was doing anything extraordinary, because he just thinks, this is what I'm called to as a Christian, is to love and to serve. And so it's like the very fact that he simply lived the Christian life that Jesus tells us we're called to live, that was his sainthood.
Yeah. It made me think of this. You never know what these little memes and little videos online are true or not, or if they're totally faked and staged. But there's this one where this woman comes up and she's mad about something. And she comes to the counter and she says, "Let me talk to the manager." And goes, okay, 1 second. So she kind of pretends to walk down the stairs like people do. They walk back up and it's just her. So she was the manager. But it was like kind of the fake down the stairs thing, the fake back up. And just the woman just becomes furious that she was kind of mocking her. And this, but I was like, that is something, the many times when that has happened, I talked to the manager and I am the manager. You know, that is kind of you don't expect the manager to be the front. You don't expect the manager to be the one doing these services. And so there's something very Christian about saying, even those who have the greatest dignity, you know, the last shall be first. Those who have the greatest dignity are also the ones in the trenches. You know, we came back last night after doing our God with Us online, and Mother Theodora was down in the basement, you know, organizing tools. That's what at least looked like what she was doing.
Yeah, that's
what
she was doing.
Organizing, and like she's a servant. You know, like she's not doing anything. At least it appears, and from my outsider point of view, I imagine it's true that she wouldn't ask. You know, she wouldn't ask one of you to do something that she wouldn't do herself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like there's something about that.
Except things like take your free time. Like she'll ask us to do that, and she won't do that herself. But as far as work, yes, you're right.
Mother, I'll call her out. Father, what did Father Steve Flynn say yesterday that was so beautiful too? There's an authority. Yes. There's an authority to service. In other words, if you are serving, especially if you're volunteering and not receiving anything like pay, like what you earn is an authority. Like you, by your service to others, you've earned a certain authority over them. You've received it. Like you can serve your way into authority. And of course, this is all about intention. You know, it's all about when we serve others, and are we doing it out of love? Are we doing it to truly make their life better? Because we can also serve out of manipulation. You know, we can pray out of manipulation. We can fast. We can give alms, all out of manipulation. The scriptures talk about this explicitly. So we need to make sure that our intentions, even in service, are pure and truly loving. But this should be what identifies Christians and separates us from the rest of the world. I wish it were more the case. In this way, we are really hypocrites, but it should it should be the case. And I think this is remembering that this was kind of the first impressions of Christians in the world. Like you can read Josephus and some other non-Christian writers who saw Christ and who kind of saw the ways of Christians and talked about how they did, you know, saved abandoned babies. You know, this is mentioned here too, where they don't, you know, abandoning babies, which that's a common thing, you know, in the early church, unfortunately, exposing them to die. And Christians would save these babies. You know, these witnesses, things like this, are just beautiful testimonies to the earliest Christians that we can use to inspire us in this day and age. Anything else, Mother, or we can finish up?
That was great. Thank you. I'm just really, I love these writings by the early fathers because the Lord is very clearly present in them, because as I read them, it's just, my heart is on fire, like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, you know, and that's the fire of the Holy Spirit. So I always feel really inspired when I read these things. I would really encourage everyone to look up that 40 Days with the Fathers PDF, because it's just great.
One of your sister wives is walking towards the bell. I wonder if
Did you just say sister wives?
Yes, with Jesus.
That is weird. That's really weird.
Just not.
I said it to be provocative.
You did.
And it worked.
You did.
One of your fellow nuns is walking towards it. I was hoping that our listeners could hear the bells.
Oh, well, they might. We'll see.
It's 10 till. Anyway.
There they are.
Can you hear it in the headphones?
I think so.
Oh, that's good.
I don't know if I'm hearing in the headphones or not, but anyway. So yeah, we got to go to Vespers.
Nope. We got to go to Sixth Hour.
Nope, we got to go to Sixth Hour. It's only 11:50. It's been a long day. But okay. Was there anything else I was going to say? I don't think so.
No, just the things.
So all the things. You know where to find us. We're on all the different platforms. Please, if you're able to comment and like, that allows the algorithm to love us more as you do. So please check that out. We're on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You can engage with us and with other listeners there. I'm on Twitter, Padre Michael O. We also have a Goodreads account, which is thriving. Thank you to our media team for keeping that up. We also have a website, whatgodisnot.com. We also have a Patreon page where you can support us and our nonprofit called Fotina, which is also a website, fotina.org. We are also on YouTube, audio only, but we are on YouTube if you like to listen to your podcast or watch your podcast on YouTube. And I think that's it.
You did great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That didn't sound patronizing at all. I want to commend you. It didn't. It really didn't. Like I know that's something you're trying to grow in, and I just want to say good job. I want to say good job, Mother. That wasn't patronizing at all.
Is that how I sound?
Hannah says no. We'll leave it there.
All right.
All right.
It's like when I say, I love you so much. Yeah. That's what I say when I'm really annoyed with you. Oh.
All right. Prayer intentions. Hannah, we'll let you have an opportunity for your prayer intentions as well. But my prayer intentions are...
Oh, it's plural today.
Well, I don't know. Now I got to think of two, I guess, since you said that.
Please don't.
I hadn't thought of any. I will ask you to pray for... just pray for the nuns here. You guys are amazing, and I come here every time, and I'm refreshed, and... this is such a beautiful place, and sorry if I'm overwhelming your Pustinia sign-up sheet again. But yeah, this is a little piece of heaven on earth where our Lord is here for his those he has called to monasticism, and that overflows from you ladies to the rest of us in a very, very real way through your prayer and through the life and your love and your care for us. Who visit. So pray for them, pray for the community, pray for the future of this community and all the brightness and the joy that is there. Obviously, the devil knows this better than we do, so he's going to attack and has attacked, will continue to attack. So the protection of those who listen here and those who pray. Let's make sure we continue to pray for the nuns of Christ the Bridegroom.
I had a prayer intention and I completely forgot it. I am going to ask you all to pray for my very dear friend, Andrew Whaley, who I love very much. And pray for his dad, who, as we're recording, is probably actively dying or close to it. So pray for Andrew and for his beautiful heart, and also for his dad. Thank you.
I would say it's just pray for a lot of people in my life, not so much like things per se, but just my beautiful kids and my husband. We're coming up on a cross-country move, and I think it's going to be hard on the kids, but they can't anticipate it because they're 4 and 2, so they have no idea what's coming. But just the logistics of that. And then pray for my really good friends, Tanya Butchke and Jenny Lamott. They have been absolutely outstanding friends to me in Montana. Montana was a roller coaster living there for the few years that we've been there, and they are probably 2 of the best friends. It's always sad because with how much we move being military, like you spend 18 months to 2 years learning the town and getting to know people, and then you finally have your little group, and then you get orders and you have to pick up and leave again. So they're not listeners, but if they ever listen to this episode, like they'll know that they're prayed for, but they've been enormous blessings in my life. So they would definitely benefit from prayers of listeners.
Thank you for joining, Hannah. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being our research assistant and being Mother's co-troublemaker and mocking me and making fun of me. I appreciate that immensely.
Also, anytime.
Yeah.
Also anytime.
All right.
All right. Love you, Mother.
Love you,
Hannah.
too.
Love you, listeners. Thank y'all.
It's good to be with you in person.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, have mercy on you. May our Lord allow you to be true witnesses of his light in the world, to be in the world but not of the world, to carry the light to the places where you are called to do, to embrace your vocations in their fullness, to understand the confidence and the humility of what you've been called to do as temples of the Holy Spirit, called to carry Christ into the world, the Holy Spirit. May you always find fulfillment in that, and yet never be content in this world. May you show forth this desire for greater justice and all the justice and the mercy only Christ can bring in your daily lives. May you remember those who have asked for your prayers and those who have asked you to pray for them and those intentions. And may Lord bless you and give you everything you need, even to the salvation of your soul. May Lord bless you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.